From South Carolina Public Radio, this is the South Carolina Lead. I'm your host, Gavin Jackson, and this episode was recorded on February 9th, 2026 from South Carolina Public Radio Studios here in Columbia. On this episode of The Lead, we hear from Senator Lindsey Graham on sanctuary cities and what's the latest on his Russian sanctions bill. Congresswoman Nancy Mace was recently featured in New York Magazine, but not in the way you would think. We'd look at the fallout from President Donald Trump's social media post depicting the former president and first lady as primates, and we get the latest regional economic pulse from Richmond Fed President and CEO Tom Barkin. Also, which state lawmaker is set to resign this year? This is kind of a little sloppy pod. A lot of things happening. You can find that trough of news and information at the State House Gavel at scetv.org/thegavel, where Tuesday through Friday we gavel in with me and Maayan Schechter. We bring you the latest recaps, previews, big and small State House moments, meeting schedule highlights, photos, video, and more. We have recipes where I also talk. I give you the whole backstory about how much I love this recipe, and I never give you the ingredients. We also want to hear from you. What? Yes, dear listener, 803-563-7169. That is your direct hotline to the podcast wind down section. We want to know what's going on with you, if you have parenting tips for AT for his newborn and his 2-year-old, if you have any words of inspiration for me, and if you want to know the latest on my avocado ripening cycle, or maybe you have some sort of produce ripening cycle that you're going through as well. 803-563-7169. It's a safe space in the wind down section. Let's look at what's on tap this week at the State House. We are back for week 5. Looking at the state Supreme Court, they will be in on Wednesday at 9:30 a.m. for a doozy of a hearing involving convicted double murderer Alex Murdaugh's direct appeal for a new trial based on post-trial allegations of jury tampering. Everyone's going to be talking about that this week, folks, so we'll have a little bit of a recap there for you on Saturday. Up in Congress, the House and Senate are in this week, with Friday being the deadline to keep the Department of Homeland Security funded ahead of next week's President's Day recess. And on the economic front, on Tuesday, we get December retail sales. Wednesday, we get January unemployment. Thursday, we get existing home sales data. And Friday, inflation data with the consumer price index. What are you guys feeling? You guys feeling confident? You guys think that inflation's still pretty sticky? Let us know. Well, they'll let us know, but you guys can let me know how many eggs you're buying these days. Now let's get into it. Last week ended with a bit of a cliffhanger that I didn't share with you, but I'm sharing now.
Thank you.
Maayan Schechter reported in the Gavel that in a unanimous decision, the Senate very quickly passed and sent to the House S-880, a joint resolution that says if a legislator resigns on or before March 1st of this year, then the election to fill that seat will be held concurrently with candidate filing and election schedule for all House members. So the obvious question that was just racking everyone's minds in the State House, who is resigning? What does this mean? Senate Majority Leader Shane Massey wouldn't say last Thursday, which fueled the rumor mill even more. But it was kind of obvious if you thought about it. In fact, it was York Republican Senator Wes Clymer. That's because he's running for the 5th Congressional District, which is Ralph Norman's seat, and we know that Ralph Norman is running for governor, so that's going to be an open seat. So Clymer said on Twitter on Sunday that it has bothered him when someone in elected office runs for another office and wins, and that results in a special election needing to take place at the taxpayer's expense, as well as a lapse in representation for constituents. So Clymer, this is how it's going to go, will be irrevocably resigning by March 1st, but he will remain in the Senate representing District 15 until November 2nd. But again, this means that folks will be able to run for his Senate District 15 seat when filing opens on March 16th. He says that this could save taxpayers anywhere from $150,000 to $270,000 because there won't be a need for the special election and potential runoff. Speaking of campaign machinations, let's go to Senator Lindsey Graham. Last week, he was in the Oval Office with President Donald Trump and other lawmakers where he low-key kind of stole the show as he called for an end to sanctuary cities while Trump signed the third fiscal year 2026 appropriations package. Here's Graham.
Y'all are playing like Biden didn't exist. Y'all won't tell the American people about Lake and Riley. It's a one-sided debate. For 4 years, our border was obliterated. They let them come in by the tens of millions, and they want to go back that way. We're not going. So, Mr. President, stick to your guns. If you got reforms that make ICE better, more professional, talk to me. But you should embrace what I'm suggesting. As long as 12 states have sanctuary policy, they'll keep coming. Unfortunately, you won't be president forever. These magnets of illegal immigration have to go. There is no upside to sanctuary city unless you're a complete radical nut job. The cops hate it, fraud around sanctuary cities, and you're going to get more illegal immigration. We're going to have a debate. I've been trying to solve this problem, but what the Democrats are doing is they're not getting to the underlying problem. It's not Stephen Miller. It's not Chrissy Nome. It's not me. It's not you. It's policies that have been on the books that don't work. So if you want to debate on how to solve this problem, show up next week. I'm going to take President Trump's idea that it's time to end the insane policy of sanctuary cities. We're going to take it to the floor and we're going to vote, and people in November are going to get to see who they trust to keep the border secure.
So that took place on Tuesday. And on Friday, I saw a Graham campaign commercial on TV at Craft and Draft.
Shout out.
That used multiple clips from that appearance, as well as a still photo of Laken Riley, the late 22-year-old Augusta University student who was killed by an illegal immigrant while jogging at the University of Georgia in February 2024. All this while saying Democrats support sanctuary cities. So, again, Graham really hammering home the immigration message as part of his campaign ahead of the June primaries. And it's also worth noting that he does have President Trump's endorsement, so nothing that he's vying for there. He's just kind of doubling down and continuing to keep that train rolling ahead of June. But keeping with Graham, who is chair of the Budget Committee and on the Appropriations Committee, he helped secure $150 million in funding for state projects, also known as pork. And they're loose. This money is for a variety of infrastructure, higher education, and workforce development projects. We have a giant... What are the sty? A pigsty. Graham said in a statement, quote, "I firmly believe elected representatives have a responsibility to be faithful stewards of taxpayer dollars, and I am proud to have delivered a product that reflects that position," quote. Some of the highlights of those South Carolina projects that will receive funding as a result include $25 million for runway rehabilitation at Greenville Spartanburg Airport, a smoother landing, $20.5 million for roadway improvements in Charleston County, always in vogue, $7 million for veterinary education equipment and technology at Clemson, $5.5 million for a public safety facility in Pageland, and then there's healthcare funding for Tidelands Health, Prisma Health, Spartanburg Regional Healthcare System, and McLeod Health for equipment and construction costs and additional investments as well. So a lot of pork. As for Ukraine, we're still in that holding pattern when it comes to Graham's sanctions bill that allows the administration to impose tariffs and secondary sanctions on countries that purchase Russian oil and gas and uranium, as well as other exports. Now, this despite statements in January and previously that the bill was set to move. We've talked about it multiple times on this podcast, guys. Now, this legislation is meant to cut off a main funding source for Russia's military actions. And it has gathered 80 co-sponsors, this bill has, but has yet again to move and is likely complicated by the latest trade developments with India, which purchases Russian oil. Graham last week also called for the U.S. to supply Ukraine with Tomahawk missiles, saying, quote, "would be a game changer militarily. In the coming days and weeks, we must apply more pressure to Putin," Graham said in a post on Twitter, which identifies as X. That came after Russia bombarded Ukrainian energy infrastructure last week. Now, I know we're still kind of drilling down on this, but we got a little messy again. There's some messiness in this podcast, like we said. During an appearance on Overtime, which is the online part of Real Time with Bill Maher on Friday, former New Jersey governor and Republican presidential candidate Chris Christie was asked by former Canadian finance minister Chrystia Freeland what Republicans actually say about Trump. Take a listen.
What do Republicans say to each other when we're not listening about what's happening in America right now?
Look, so many of my fellow party members, especially come up to me because I say all this stuff out loud, and they in the green room at ABC, they say, "You're so brave. That's so great. I totally agree with you. He's nuts." And then they go out on camera to be interviewed. They are the greatest president since Abraham Lincoln, you know? And then they come back in the green room and they say to me, "You know, I have to do that, but like I don't really mean it." That's what they say.
Like who specifically?
Bill. Overtime's not long enough to give you all the names, but I'll give you one. Lindsey Graham. Which, by the way, was what he was saying when he was running for president in 2016. But I guess if you get invited to play golf, then off you go.
Well, knock me over with a feathered boa that I'm wearing with a silk robe.
That was Chris Christie on Bill Maher's Overtime. Very interesting there. No comment from the Graham campaign. Continuing with our delegation, on Friday, Senator Tim Scott, the only black Republican in the Senate, called out Trump and the White House over a racist video shared on Trump's social media that briefly depicted the 44th President Barack Obama and former First Lady Michelle Obama as apes. It was one of 66 posts fired off on Trump's Truth Social account from 10:36 p.m. to 12:25 a.m. Scott said on Twitter, quote, praying it was fake because it's the most racist thing I've seen out of this White House. The president should remove it, quote. Now, Scott wasn't the only Republican to call it the White House, which previously defended the video and then blamed it on an intern for posting before deleting it. Trump told reporters Friday on Air Force One that he spoke with Scott and said, quote, understood 100%, quote. The brief clip was part of a longer video on unsubstantiated voter fraud claims from the 2020 election, which Trump lost to Joe Biden. Now, MAGA loyalist Laura Loomer retweeted at Scott and said, quote, how come you did this publicly in a midterm election year instead of calling President Trump privately? Seriously, what is wrong with you? Why are you always working to undermine him? You've always been a Trump hater. You even ran against him, quote, Laura Loomer, her words, my emphasis. And Lieutenant Governor Pamela Evette, who is running for governor and also seeking Trump's endorsement, tweeted, quote, another case of Trump derangement syndrome as media and politicians melt down over 2 seconds of an auto-generated clip that was clearly posted in error. Would be nice if the press spent as much time holding criminal illegals accountable as they do pearl clutching and virtue signaling over auto-generated videos, quote. Now we're moving to another spicy news cycle. First District Congresswoman Nancy Mace, who is also running for governor, was profiled in New York Magazine last week under the title, quote, Nancy Mace is not okay, quote. This was the second such profile on Mace, who has a penchant for garnering headlines and staying in the media spotlight. A December Wall Street Journal article was a bit softer with the headline, quote, Nancy Mace's combative run for governor of South Carolina, quote. While that article wasn't quite flattering, that didn't stop Mace from repurposing some of the quotes in a positive light on social media. Now, that wasn't the case for the New York Magazine piece, however, which Mace preemptively advertised on her social media. Leaning into the fire, promoting it, all the above. She said she was unbothered, but then she also fought back against some of the claims made in the piece, so hard to say. But the report started from Mace's bombshell, scorched earth speech on the floor of the House last February, where she made accusations against her former fiancé, Patrick Bryant, and 3 of his associates over sexual misconduct claims that remain under investigation by state authorities. Now, it also features a lot of quotes from anonymous sources, including former staffers, and one of them said that the speech signaled a breaking point, saying, quote, because you've now gone from standing up for people, whether rightfully, wrongfully, performative or not, you were on this mission. And now this is about you. The whole frame shifted, and she centered herself in it all. That's when it became apparent to me that this is broken, quote. That's an unnamed anonymous source in that New York Magazine piece. Now, Mace has churned through staffers on Capitol Hill and proudly states that she doesn't need a chief of staff or a campaign manager, proclaiming that she prefers a flatter organizational structure. The report also recounts her airport meltdown with law enforcement in October and a pending House Ethics Committee inquiry. Though former staffers say Mace's unhinged behavior goes back to her first term in 2021, when she would apparently call staffers to deliver her booze or do housework for her, or create burner accounts on Reddit to vote for her on Hottest Women in Congress forums. Another quote here, quote, these allegations are so ridiculous that they don't even merit a response. I hope she sues you for every dime you got paid to write this defamatory bullshit. Quote, that was Cameron Morabito, Mace's director of operations, in response to questions to Jack LaHutte, who wrote the piece. Moving to some economic news. No censoring needed here. Tom Barkin, president and CEO of the Federal Reserve Bank of Richmond, told education and business leaders last Tuesday that economic and monetary policy has become a bit more clear this year compared to, quote, driving in a dense fog, quote, that was 2025 thanks to political machinations. I love saying that word now. that sidelined many businesses. You guys have a better word? 803-563-7169. Back to Barkin. He started with that look back at 2025 and how the fog is lifting in 2026. Take a listen to this big chunk.
You may have heard it called the most predicted recession in history, but instead, inflation started falling back toward our 2% target, while the economy and the labor market seemed impressively resilient. We were headed back home. Then, of course, came last year. The pace of change was overwhelming. Think geopolitical tensions in the Ukraine and Gaza and Venezuela and Iran. Think the transformational possibility of artificial intelligence. Think government policy changes like tariffs, immigration, tax bill, deregulation, spending cuts, and the government shutdown. It was hard to know how all these shifts would net out for demand, for employment, and for inflation. And I compared it last year a lot to driving in a dense fog. You didn't want to put your foot on the gas because you didn't know what lay around the next turn. You didn't want to put your foot on the brake because you didn't want to know what accident that would cause. So you pulled over and you put on your hazards. And that's what most businesses did last year. They spent the year on the side of the road, not cutting back, but not leaning into more investment, not hiring, but not firing. And visibility only worsened further when everybody lost access to government data during last fall's extended shutdown. But as we move into 2026, it feels to me like the fog is starting to lift, or maybe our eyes are just starting to adjust. The road ahead is coming back into focus, and once again, we're seeing an economy that remains remarkably resilient. You can see it in the recent data. Third quarter GDP came in at a very strong 4.4%. Consumer spending, which makes up nearly 70% of GDP, remained healthy through the fall. The unemployment rate ticked down in December, coming in at 4.4%. And just for context, the unemployment rate has only been that low 3 times in our working lifetimes. In the late 90s, in the 2006-2007 period, and in the late 2010s. Unemployment claims remain stable as well. Why have we stayed this resilient? I think it's due to strong underlying dynamics. Consumers have jobs, as I've said. With inflation down, real wages are now increasing. Asset values keep growing. Corporate earnings remain strong. In those circumstances, it's hard to imagine consumers and businesses moving to the sidelines. In parallel, inflation has come back from its peak and now sits at 2.8%. Near-term expectations for inflation have also fallen, suggesting more progress to come. And I hear the same reinforcing messages when I talk to businesses. I've talked personally to almost 75 companies since the start of the year. They tell me their demand is fine. Their customers have learned to live with higher uncertainty. Most firms I talk to are still not doing layoffs at scale. Why would they, when demand and margins remain solid? Many of those who were determined to pass on tariffs last spring now acknowledge their pricing power has been significantly constrained by pushback by consumers, and that's good for inflation. And the recent rise in productivity also suggests these businesses can bear higher input costs without facing as much pressure to increase prices.
You can watch his full speech at youtube.com/@SCETV News. Welcome to the wind down section, our little break from the news. We're glad you're here along with A.T. Shire, lead podcast producer. Hello.
Hello, Gavin. We'll get into the Super Bowl and everything after this, but we got a call, bud.
Oh,
okay.
Hold your horses on the Super Bowl, folks. Super Bowl 60.
It's not a horse, it's a pig, but let's get to this call. Are you ready?
Yes.
Hey, Gavin and AT. This is Dave from Anderson. I've called in a few times, but it's been a while. Anyway, the avocado discussion kind of got me thinking today. You know, my wife, Miriam, she is really good with avocados. So one thing, she can tell when they're ripe. And, you know, it's kind of by the way they feel, how squishy they are. And then by how black they look or how dark they look, you know, once they move from green toward black. But then once they're ripe, she puts them in the fridge, and then you can leave them in the fridge and they stay sort of in their ripe state for about a week or so. So then you can use them whenever you get a chance. So anyway, I don't know if other people already do that, or if that's a useful tip that other people might appreciate, but I thought it was pretty cool when she figured that out. Anyway, thanks for everything you do on the lead, and have a good one.
Dave, thanks for calling, and also, hey, Miriam, thank you for
Shout out, Miriam.
Shout out
Miriam, or Avocado Queen. Yeah, I'm going through these things, man.
He's churning through them at a rate that is unbelievable.
And that makes sense. Like, that's a great way to stagger it. But since I'm in like the zone right now, I'm taking them from like they're timing out perfectly for my consumption patterns.
Gavin is choosing in the store by color, but honestly, now his cuticles are going green.
They are. That's the hard
going green.
You dig them out.
Base all his teeth going green. It's not looking good for old man. He's looking like a Hulk.
For an avocado. I mean, who can pass it up? I will also note that they are tricky little fruits, right?
Yeah,
We're gonna call it a fruit, even though they're
sticky
vegetables.
wickets. Yeah.
So I have I've grown up. I've started buying.
He's
things
grown
that
up,
are,
folks. He's changed.
Started buying things that are like,
Natural.
safer. I'm buying actual green produce, not artificially flavored produce.
Yeah.
And there's an avocado knife. It's kind of like a plastic knife. It's serrated blade.
Yeah.
It also has like a little thing that you could maybe slice it on the other side. Doesn't really work because everything gets caught in there. But in the middle, there's a pitter.
Yeah.
It has like some metal teeth in it. So you can push down, twist it, pop that pit out.
You could drop down, twist it, and reverse it.
And instead of dangerously, like, I could just jam this out with the sharpest knife that I have.
Yeah,
and then
that
cut
works
my
fine.
thumb off.
That works fine.
No. We're going smarter, not harder.
Yeah, you want single-use kitchen appliance.
Well,
yeah,
I have a lemon squeezer, a citrus squeezer, because I can also put limes in there.
You should see this guy try to get a grapefruit in there.
You wouldn't believe it. He doesn't, folks.
You just listen to all these single-use things Gavin's going towards.
I can't imagine what's in your kitchen drawers, AT. Come
Absolute
on,
nightmare.
Barely
open.
You don't want to see.
Barely open.
And then you open it,
They
goes
get
bing!
stuck. So yeah, it's so bad.
Stuff flies out.
But anyway, Gavin,
Did you watch the Super Bowl?
we're here to
Did you
talk
hear about the Super Bowl?
Yeah, honestly, game terrible.
Snooze.
Terrible game.
Snooze.
I really hated the game. There were points where it was bath time for Rena and the bedtime routine. I just shut it off.
You said
I missed like a quarter and a half and didn't miss a single point.
Truly.
And so let's talk about what really matters.
Yeah, because even the ads, I didn't really catch all the ads because it was a party and no one was actually
All the
listening.
ads were sort
It's
of
like crypto.
It was crypto. It was gambling, or it was like, hey, remember Jurassic Park?
Right, yeah.
Which
The
was
reheats.
a disgusting sort of reheated thing. Yeah.
Like, at least it was done appropriately, but still, that's all
Sort
we
of.
got. And I think the other one that I saw before, I didn't see it live, but I saw it on Instagram before, was with Melissa McCarthy.
Also, stop showing me stuff before. I don't want to see them before.
The joie de vivre.
So let's talk about Bad Bunny, okay? I don't know anything about Bad Bunny.
I just know he's vibes, and that was definitely on display.
I don't.
Can't refute that.
I didn't understand a word. I didn't recognize a single song. But when I tell you that set was the most impressive Super Bowl set I've ever seen, and the camera work on this thing was so cinematic and crazy. I loved that.
That's Apple Music for you, right there, baby. That's Apple Music. That's not a Pepsi halftime show. That's Apple Music.
Thank you. America deserves better than a Pepsi halftime show, okay?
You tell Britney Spears that.
Coke or get out of there, all right?
Thank you.
This was a really good halftime show.
Truly.
My litmus test for a halftime show is it a spectacle? You know? I need dancers. I don't love dance that much, but like I need dancers. I need mazes. I need shining mazes built of people
that was the Weeknd's one. Yeah, I mean, and then like Katy
was
Perry's
good.
Roar. I mean, yeah, and this I've seen numbers that this is one of the top ones that we've seen. Like 130 million people saw it. Like that's more than Beyonce and Lady Gaga, who did make that cameo. And I can tell you at the party I was at, with 60 gentlemen. Yeah, let's just say that.
Sure.
The gasps, the screams, because everyone I think thought Cardi B was gonna be there. She was one of the people that made a cameo, but like I was expecting her to be like.
I was like, is that Jess Alba, the only person in jeans?
But then also, I mean, it was well done. Like it really did give that glimpse. And yes, there's heavy imagery talking about Puerto Rico, which
there was a story. There was a story throughout, and I was like, this is huge.
It also kind of reminded me a little bit of Dr. Dre's, and like all that different, like all the different scenes.
Right.
Like
I love
that's
that.
fun. Like that keeps things fresh and moving.
I think think this is in stark contrast to the Rihanna one, where it was just
your
Rihanna.
Platform, yeah.
That was boring to me. That wasn't spectacle
That's
enough.
what you can do when you are that level of the diva. Like Beyonce also.
You can try
you
that.
know, every halftime show, it's not like, it's like, it's always a complaint about it.
That
like,
was good.
Who cares?
I just needed to be big in the way that it was.
Not
big.
everything's going to be Michael Jackson and Prince, guys. You know, it's time you got to move on.
My biggest...
Not to mention how big of a segment of the audience for the NFL that they want it to be is Hispanic and Latin American viewers, let alone like international viewers too. It's like, do you think Roger Goodell's listening to all these few people complaining about this?
He's
like,
looking at the viewership numbers.
He knows, and they're backing him up. So it's like, thanks, guys.
Yeah.
We know that you don't like this guy because he speaks Spanish.
Yeah.
But we're going to go with it anyway.
It also means you're going to hate watch it.
J-Lo and Shakira rocked it out, but I guess because there's more English in that one, that was okay. But there was still a lot of shaking going on in both of those shows.
There was a lot of shaking. I loved the cuts. I loved them falling through the floors, falling off onto people. Like, that was fun.
And I don't know any Bad Bunny songs either, but I was like,
I didn't know a single one.
And it goes back to what people think, like, same with Shakira. Like, everyone knows a couple Shakira songs, but they don't realize how much of an international superstar she is versus, like, what we think she is. It's like, that's just our inherent disconnect because we just think America only versus like they are international superstars.
Truly, I said this to Caitlin. I said, all these songs just sound like Fast and Furious songs to me, and I like that about it.
You're just watching like montages in your mind. You're like, oh yeah. But it was. You had all those little vignettes. I mean, it was really cool.
It was really cool. And Ricky Martin sitting on the plastic deck chairs. That was great.
Someone at this party, a younger person, probably Gen Z, was like, who is that?
What?
And I said, Ricky Martin? To which they said, who is that?
Oh.
And I said, walk away from me right now.
Yeah.
Know your people.
Buy Lamos away from me, bro.
My God. So, I mean, Google exists. Don't embarrass yourself in front of, millennials, guys.
I got to say, though, too, Ricky Martin, he probably went to Turkey. Great hair work on that guy. Great head of lettuce. He looking good. Caitlin didn't recognize him. I instantly was like, that's Ricky Martin.
Oh,
he looked like Ricky Martin.
You get some work done. You puff it up a little bit. You got to keep it fresh.
He looked good. Anyway,
the
folks.
Unnatural high beauty standards that they demand.
You're looking good, folks. Have a good weekend, okay? What did you think of the Super Bowl? Did you know any of the songs? Because I didn't. But I do love Latin big band jazz. That sounded great. Anyway, Gavin, say the credits. Great week ahead, okay? It's going to get warmer, folks.
Get some specific utensils for your kitchen and your own safety. You can do that by calling 803-563-7169, and you can stay up to date with the latest news on SCETV.org and SouthCarolinaPublicRadio.org, and don't forget to support your local newspapers. The South Carolina Lead is a production of South Carolina Public Radio. Our producer is A.T. Shire. Amy Crouch is our supervising producer. Sean Birch is our executive producer. This podcast is produced with support from PRX and is made possible in part by a grant from the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, as well as listener contributions to the ETV Endowment of South Carolina. For the South Carolina Lead, I'm Gavin Jackson. Be well, South Carolina.
Wasn't there supposed to be one this week?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
No, you should say that.
Hey,
you should say I was acting. I was
that
acting.
was good. You tricked
I was
me.
acting.
Wow, that was good.
Yeah, I was. It was good.
No, that was me acting. That was me acting as being shocked because I knew you were acting. That's how deep I went.
Wow.